Back during the Liberation campaign from a level on Creek, I used the Dominator as my primary weapon of choice. And in fact, it was the only weapon I believed was viable after the Slugger nerf. The Dominator has medium penetration. It staggers enemies and deals nearly 300 damage. The only downside was its poor handling. I simply couldn't find that any other primary was worth my time, and therefore I never even considered using light armor penetrating weapons. In fact, I sort of scoffed at them. It wasn't until I actually heard the sound effects of the Sickle did I even consider touching a light armor penetrating weapon. You heard that right. I only picked up the Sickle because it sounded cool. During my first time using the Sickle, I literally sat there like Danny DeVito and said, I get it. Sure, the sound effects helped a lot, but the infinite ammo and zero recoil also worked to convince me to at least keep using it. If you refuse to pick up light armor penetrating weapons in Helldivers 2 just because they can't penetrate medium armor, you may be missing out on a lot of fun playstyles. Now, before we get into the bulk of this video, I need to clear one thing up. This video is not a guide, or at least a guide that will make the game easier. If anything, this is a guide to invite more fun, challenge, and skill to your play sessions in Helldivers 2. Allow me to better explain what I mean by all of this. You see, there is this huge discourse in the Helldivers 2 community about the worth of light armor penetrating weapons. It's a simple debate, really. One side believes medium penetration is better because, well, it penetrates, and light armor does not. Simple. Medium penetrating weapons have a ton of advantages over light armor penetrating weapons, simply by having a higher penetration value. When it comes to light penetration, I thought it would be easier to highlight its weaknesses first, since this is what causes most players to set these weapons aside, including me at first. Light armor penetration cannot penetrate medium armor. Now, I know that I've been saying this a lot, but this truly is its biggest weakness. Because it can't penetrate medium armor, there are actually a couple of mobs it outright cannot kill, that being tanks and gunships. And I believe Bile Titans, but I could be wrong. Maybe you can kill one in the butt with a Stalwart. Tank vents are surprisingly medium armor only. Even though they are vents, you actually cannot damage a tank at all with any form of light armor penetration. Same goes for gunships, which all of their armor is medium, but usually most players take out tanks and gunships with support weapons. It also can't kill normal striders from the front like medium armor can, so you have to resort to flanking or shooting the rockets when it comes to a rocket strider. Because of this, light armor penetration happens to be less convenient against Devastators as well, since usually players shoot center mass in high-stress situations. Using light penetration may not be ideal for most players. Not to mention that medium penetration deals more damage per bullet, DPB, not to be confused with DPS. This means that single shots are often extremely hefty and deal tons of damage per shot, except in the case of the Adjudicator, Liberator Penetrator, and the new Pacifier, which rely more on saturation than single shots. Part of this also comes from the way armor values work. You see, light armor pen, even though it passes through light armor, doesn't actually deal full damage when it hits light armor. In fact, it actually deals a percentage less than if you hit the same armor with a medium penetrating weapon, which deals full damage when hitting light armor. This means your damage is reduced by 65% unless you hit the head of a Devastator, which is unarmored. Now that's about all for the benefits of medium penetration I can think of. You see, the main downside to medium penetration is that the bullets are bigger. I know it's a video game, and Arrowhead didn't have to make things realistic, but in real life, bigger bullets means less storage space and less spare mags. That means that your mag size is reduced and you have less total ammo. Usually. The double-edged sickle doesn't count. And while on topic of your bullets being bigger, that also means your gun is heavier. In most cases, at least. Because it's heavy, it takes longer to aim. And your weapons are more sluggish. Some examples are the Dominator, the Eruptor, and the Diligence Counter Sniper. Not every medium penetrating weapon is going to feel like this though. But those that don't usually have other drawbacks, such as reduced ammo, damage, or range. Or in the case of the double-edged sickle, you get literally burnt alive. Now I must admit, you can minimize these weaknesses using weapon customization, so it's not as bad after you start leveling up your weapons. You can't increase your total ammo with weapon customization, but you can reduce recoil and weapon sway. However, you cannot reduce both unless you select iron sights. When it comes to the benefits of light armor penetration, I recommend watching my previous video if you are interested. It's a pretty surface level explanation of why I think light armor penetration is underrated, and it covers this segment really well. So I'm not going to waste your time in this video restating something that has already been said. Suffice to say, you have way more ammo, better ergonomics, and higher DPS. Now, I must emphasize that this is still my personal experience in the game. I'm not claiming that medium penetration doesn't have its advantages. More of that both of these weapon types are on equal grounds, particularly that light pen has more ammo and better handling, but as a trade-off, it cannot target medium armor. It only makes sense that medium penetration is the inverse. But also, it depends on the situation and faction you are fighting. For example, I think we all can agree that medium penetration isn't a requirement to fight the bugs or the Illuminate. Sure, it can be helpful, but usually it's more of a hindrance because both factions attack you in swarms of lighter enemies. And when it comes to Overseers, their armor is actually all light, so shooting them in the chest with a Liberator Carbine can kill them very quickly. For me, I find light armor penetration more fun against the automatons because of the challenge. You see, using light armor penetration does use more skill, but not much in my opinion. In terms of usability, light armor and medium armor pen both target the same types of enemies. Using light armor penetration against the bots effectively changes the game. Instead of aiming at weak spots to get quicker kills, these weak spots become some of the only kills you can get. Now, you can aim at the legs or pelvis and that works too. But usually I aim for the head because I like the one tap and it conserves the most ammo even if I miss the first couple shots. It's like shooting for a bullseye, except the bullseye is the only thing you can hit. The game makes you focus on hitting these weak spots, but it also forces you to play more tactically because I find myself often targeting light enemies first, therefore preventing automatons from calling in more reinforcements. While stressful situations where your surrounding can get out of hand, I like to believe that those same situations would have been equally as stressful regardless of my weapon. And it's a situation that is almost entirely preventable if you have good positioning and you don't aggro every patrol you see. The biggest and most important thing I want to emphasize is the increase in skill. I felt like light armor penetration helped me get better aim. I use a controller on my PC solely because I like vibration whenever I shoot, and I felt like it was easier to type in stratagems. But even with the controller, I felt like hitting headshots was starting to become easy. Now, light armor penetration isn't for everyone, and I acknowledge not every person who plays Helldivers 2 is capable of using it to its fullest extent. Light armor pen against the automatons in reality is a lot harder for certain people with inhibiting circumstances, like poor vision, mobility, or even some mental hindrances. For some players, taking medium penetration helps them stay competitive, even at higher levels, and for others, it's nearly a requirement. Again, this is my personal experience with Helldivers 2. You may not feel the same way. And in no way am I trying to tell you how you should play the game. Helldivers 2 is meant to be accessible to multiple playstyles, and this is just one of many. Which comes to my final part of this video. I've seen people make fun of other players for this in difficulty 10, claiming that it's simply not effective and that it will cost the team reinforcements. Firstly, I'd like to say that losing reinforcements is almost entirely based on bad positioning, aggroing patrols, and not knowing when to run. And definitely not because of light armor penetration. Very rarely does having a medium armor penetrating weapon actually prevent you from dying, in my opinion, since ideally you have good cover in both situations. Basically what I'm saying is that both playstyles are fundamentally the same in terms of usability, where you take cover, run when things get too heated, avoid patrols instead of engaging them, unless you absolutely have to. And finally, be decisive with your shots. Shoot the little guys first to reduce the odds of a bot drop, and target Devastator's weak spots only when you have a clear shot. Do not stand still out in the open. Anyway, that's all I have to say on this topic. Thank you to all who watched my last video. Many of you have given me great suggestions and helped me write the script for this video. And I was so happy to find that many of you actually enjoy using light armor penetration against the automatons. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like. And if you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe. It helps a ton and it means a lot.